Hello, welcome to this introductory tutorial for AutoCAD 2015 on the Macintosh. For our purposes, the first thing I'd like you to do is open a new drawing and choose the template acad.dwt. For the way that we teach plotting and color control, acad.dwt will put your file in the correct format from the beginning. Go ahead and click Open. The next thing I always like to do at the beginning of a file, and this should just become a basic habit, every time you open a new file, select acad.dwt and then set your units. In CAD, you can start by typing in commands. So just type units, or the keyboard shortcut is UN, enter. For our purposes, we are going to use architectural units. Precision of 1/16 is fine. You can leave the angle, and we'll set our insertion scale to inches and go ahead and say OK. Just to introduce you to the interface, on the left-hand side in the Mac version, you have your tools, your basic tools, move, lines, different types of shapes. On the right-hand side, we have your layers panel and your properties inspector, and we will spend a lot more time getting to know these panels. Across the bottom are what are called your drawing aids. So these are things such as your grid, your drawing grid, and your object snaps, which we will also learn about later. This is also where you can set the annotation scale. And there are some navigation tools down here such as pan and zoom. Here we also have the ability to move between model space and layout tabs, and that's important when you want to go from a one-to-one drawing, a full-scale drawing in model space, to a scaled drawing, which is scaled to fit a sheet of paper that can be printed. And then the most important portion of all in the interface is the command line. Now there's also dynamic insert, so you can basically type a command anywhere in the screen and it enters that information into the command line. The command line is a place where you should keep an eye. This is where AutoCAD will ask you questions and prompt you for the type of input that it's looking for. Let's also take a quick look at our preference menu. So under the AutoCAD menu, Preferences, and here in General, under Mouse and Trackpad Customization, by default, the secondary click or the right click displays the context menu. The context menu can be helpful. I also like to have a quick right click as the return key. That makes it so that you can very quickly end a command and reactivate that command, and then a slower click will open up your context menu. Spacebar hold as pan is a default, and that can also be very helpful. And then I'd also like to bring your attention to the automatic save. You might want to make this even more frequent than every 10 minutes, but AutoCAD will automatically create a backup file in case your computer crashes. And go ahead and say OK. Let's take a moment to set up some layers. Because I'm working on a small screen in order to fit YouTube, my panels are kind of compressed. I'm going to go ahead and make some room for my Layers panel and then open the arrow that says Show Layers List. Right now, the only layer in my drawing is layer 0. To make a new layer, click on the New Layer icon. In anticipation of the drawing that you will make, let's go ahead and call this layer C-curb. C being the denotation for civil engineering, and most of the time things such as curbs and roadways would start with a C as a prefix. To change the color of that layer, simply click below this gradient icon and set a color. If you want to make the layer visible or invisible, you can click this icon. If you wanted to make the layer a non-printing layer, you could click below the printer. And if you wanted to lock the layer so that we could not modify any of the elements on it, you would hit the lock layer. Let's make another layer. For the center line of the street, we can make this one a different color. And I'd like to show you how we can associate a particular line type with a layer, so that all of the lines that I draw on this layer will be dashed or a center line or a solid line. To load the line type, start by typing the word line, or just LT, and select line type. Click the plus button to add a new line type, and we want to scroll down until we find a line type that has a long dash and a short dash, which is typical of a center line. I like center 2, which is a half scale, just because I like the proportions. While we're here, let's also add a dashed line that we might find useful at a later time. I tend to use hidden 2 as a standard dashed line. And go ahead and say OK. Now we would like to affiliate the center line type with the center line layer. So let's use the Display Settings menu. This is going to go off the screen, so just follow the voice prompts. Then View Options, and then Line Type. Now you'll see a new column appears in the Layers panel, and I can select my center line, which I just loaded. So now anything that I draw on the center line layer will come out with this long dash, short dash line type. In anticipation of the drawing that you're going to create for Lab 1, we're going to set up an annotation scale to match the specified starting scale of 1 inch equals 10 feet that's given in the assignment. Click the arrow next to the Annotation Scale menu. Scroll all the way down to the bottom of the list where it says Edit Scales. We're going to create a new scale, 1 inch equals 1 foot dash 0 inches. Our units, our paper units, can remain at 1 inch in the paper units. Our drawing units, however, if you'll remember, we set our drawing units to inches. So we actually want our scale to be 1 inch equals 10 feet. So our drawing units, we need to say how many inches are in 10 feet. So that's 12 inches per foot times 10 feet, or 120 inches. We can move this around. I'm just going to move it to the top of the list and say OK. Now select 1 inch equals 10 feet from our menu, and we've just successfully set our annotation scale. Since this preliminary tutorial is primarily about helping you understand the interface and set up your drawing properly, there's just one more thing I'd like to show you. I'm going to pull my Drawing Aids toolbar up a little bit so that you can see. If I click on the Model tab, you'll see I have Model, and then I also have Layouts. And layouts are a way to access what we call paper space, which means that we literally get to see your CAD drawing, how it would look on paper. I'd like you to go to Create New Layout. You'll notice that my screen turns white. It looks like a sheet of paper. I now would like to edit my page layout. So I'm going to type Page Setup Edit. You'll need to install a PDFwriter if your Adobe PDFwriter does not come in as a default. And then we want to set the size for this. Your drawings will probably be pretty large, probably something like 24 by 36, which is a standard Architecture D size sheet of paper. We want to print the layout, normally landscape orientation, scale 1:1, and we will come back later and spend a lot of time looking at our plot style table. Let's go ahead and say OK. And you'll notice that now our page has resized to be the Architecture D. This little box that we have down here, this is called the Viewport. And this is literally a window or a port where you can view between the paper space and the model space, and this is where we will control the scale of the drawing. I'm going to grab the corner of the viewport and increase it to fill my entire page. I would also like to set the scale for the viewport, and I want to make the scale for the viewport match the scale that I set for the annotation. So here, under Viewport Scale in my Drawing Tools toolbar, I'm going to once again select my 1 inch equals 10 foot scale, custom scale that I created. You click the Escape key to deselect the viewport, and now we have our file set up and ready for the following tutorial. Now would be a good time for you to save your file and give it a name and save it in a location that you can easily find it.